and it looked like they stopped and when they should have kept going. Is that another instance of them, quarterback and receivers, reading different coverages? I know that was an issue in week 1, too.
It kind of was with Scotty. The interception to AB, that was just a poor throw. The one to Chris read the right properly. Tom thought he was going deep. He stopped. Those things can happen sometimes when you're doing it on the run.
Mike Evans had just 17 targets combined in the last 4 games. He had 31 targets in the previous 4. With him being the best receiver on this team, why isn't Byron making a more concerted effort of getting Mike involved in the passing game earlier? Mike
was open a bunch in that ball game. He just didn't get targeted. That's all. He was open. Mike was open.
Translation, if he's open, get him the ball. And it's not on AB. It's the guy that threw it to AB.
I really disagree with the way Bruce Arians leads sometimes. And I think that there are certain things that you can say publicly. And I understand we live in this world where we want everybody to be real and raw. But if you do that, then I think you have to be ready for the consequences that can fracture your relationship with a guy that you need to have a relationship with, especially considering his past where Bill Belichick wouldn't say anything to the media, and you felt like a lot of those conversations were held internally.
Tom Brady is a 6-time Super Bowl champion and 3-time NFL MVP. This player resume is brought to you by Indeed. If you need to hire, you need to hire Indeed. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit. Just felt like doing that, Zubin.
Take it off my plate. It's all good.
I think, though, when you talk about fractured relationships and coaches, sometimes coaches send messages through the media to get to you as a player. Mike Evans, I'm sure, was open a lot in the game. There's no question about it. But so was other players that Tom Brady tried to get the football to. That's why he tried to get him the football. Maybe Mike Evans wasn't the first target on some of the plays that was designed, even though he was open. Sometimes you can be the 1, the 2, or the 3. And if you're the third guy and you're open, but what if the 1 and the 2 is open? Now your read takes you there, and those guys are open as well. It just depends. Or if he's open, there's pressure to Tom Brady, so he can't get him the ball because they're in his face or in his lap. Sometimes in the red zone, when they were trying to run fades, you got to give credit to Lattimore because Lattimore wasn't having any of it. He was locking Mike Evans down in the tight red zone on the fade routes. He's seen it a million times. Here it comes. They're on the 5-yard line. What's the first thing they decide to do? Throw a back shoulder fade or a fade over the top. So, therefore, I'm going to hold my ground if I'm Lattimore. So, when you start to look at it, you hate to see where coaches become real slick with their tongues. And I hated it as a player. That's why I was always one to fire back because they always tell you in the meetings, they say the first thing they say is, I don't read the newspaper, so I don't know what any of you are saying. And then they come to the meeting and they say, well, I don't like when people say, well, I thought you didn't read the newspapers, man. Right. And they do that slick stuff. And I think Tom Brady will react differently next time out. He'll certainly respond. I mean, you think about the way they've done things. They lose to New Orleans. Then they run on 3 games, or go on a 3-game run. Mm-hmm. Then they lose to Chicago. They go on another 3-game run. Right. Now, all of a sudden, they lose to the Saints. So maybe they'll go on another 3-game run. And they'll respond. Mm-hmm. And that's the way Tom Brady will probably respond.
I just feel like this is something really fascinating to watch because I feel like that first game, Zubin, was the inception point of that relationship. Mm-hmm. And if that kicks off a relationship, okay, cool. If you're Tom Brady, I think this is different. I recognize what this is. And then it happens. It didn't just happen again after the Saints loss. It also happened when the whole Antonio Brown scenario was coming together. Do you guys remember that? When Bruce Arians was like, well, the first call didn't come from Tom Brady. It came from me. Right? So there seems like there's this ego. Hey, it's my ego that's in control of this ship, not Tom Brady's. And that's going to be fascinating to watch how this continues to move down the road.
You said ship.
Okay,
I just wanted to make sure you said ship. That's all.
It's a great point by you, Jay, the general manager. Okay, the SHIP.
Yeah, I just making sure, that's all.
Yeah.
Gotcha. To your point, general manager Jason
Take it whatever
Light,
way you want to take it, kid.
Head coach Bruce Arians, and many people believe Tom Brady is the general manager, head coach, and the quarterback. We should also lastly mention this may be a very small thing because I understand Brady's role in the organization. Brady is signed through next year. Bruce Arians signed a 4-year deal that'll take him through 2022. There's a 5th-year option as well. I'm not saying they're on equal footing. I'm just saying that Arians can see a day where he's there and Tom isn't. That's all I'm saying.
It's going to be okay. Now, whether or not they make the playoffs, that's a different story. But I think their relationship will be okay.
SportsCenter on the way, and then a Super Bowl champion.
Jets have a timeout left if they want it. Folk on the way, and it is good. With zeros on the clock, Nick Folk. The field goal from 51 yards away, and that's how the Jets fall to 0-9.
And that was Steve Levy on ESPN's Monday Night Football. Call him a folk hero, the former Jet Nick Folk, exacting a little revenge on the old squad. 51-yarder with zeros on the clock, as Steve said. How about Jacoby Myers, fellas? 12 catches, 169 yards.
Made himself some money.
No doubt, helping out Cam Newton, who needed this win in the worst possible way. Pats avoid a fifth straight loss. Would have been their first 5-game losing streak in 25 years. They got Lamar and the Ravens Sunday night. The Jets, mercifully, are on the bye. Multiple SEC football programs are dealing with huge COVID outbreaks. Alabama LSU this weekend is in jeopardy. The Tigers may not have enough scholarship players. They're trying to figure out their depth at the quarterback position. Auburn, Mississippi State moved to December 12th. That's the 1 week baked in the SEC had at the end of the season to get some makeups in. Texas A&M pausing activities. They got one against Tennessee. And Arkansas, Sam Pittman, who is 58 years old, their first-year head coach, he's tested positive. He's in quarantine. Defensive coordinator Barry Odom will take over on an interim basis. He used to be Mizzou's coach, so he's got some SEC head coaching bona fides. NBA Players Union and the league agreeing for a season start. We know that. December 22nd, free agency will start November 20th. A little context there. That's 2 days after the draft and about a month away from the start of the regular season. Most notably, after shedding so much money after the China debacle and the bubble with no fans, the NBA salary cap and luxury tax will remain the same as it was last year, despite all of that money being lost. That's quite a pleasant surprise, certainly for players in free agency, right? SportsCenter is brought to you by Straight Talk. Look, we all accidentally damage our phones. It happens. Now Straight Talk Wireless's new Platinum Unlimited plan includes phone protection, just $65 a month for unlimited talk, text, data, and more. See Mobile Protect terms and conditions at Asurion.com/Straight Talk. Limitations and exclusions apply. Again, one of the great journeys in NFL history for anybody that's worked at this company is Jeff Saturday, going from undrafted free agent to Super Bowl champion, and he joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Jeff, it's always great to have you here this morning. We were just talking about the friction between Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, which Jay said percolated in week number 1 and percolated again after the second meeting of the season between the Saints and the Bucs on Sunday night. How do you see this relationship right now?
Well, I don't see what Bruce Arians sees in the game, that's for sure, when you're talking about guys being wide open or however he phrased it. I mean, Tom Brady was pressured, I think, 19 times. And if you look at Tom Brady's career, whether it's in New England or wherever, when you pressure him and get him off his spot, he's a different quarterback. And so when you're talking about Evans is open, well, great. If you can't protect him, what difference does it make who's open, right? Like all the plays you draw up, if he's getting pressure and has to move around and do all those things, he's just a different guy. And so when you start talking about, I felt like it was more of a protection mechanism about his coaching or their calls or whatever, as opposed to what the actual game was. I mean, what they run it 5 times, like an NFL, historic low. I mean, look, they got whipped, right? Flat out whipped. To lay this at the feet of any player, I think is a silly comment at that point. The bottom line is we win as a team, we lose as a team, and they got whipped as a team. And that was offense, defense, special teams. I know he said that the night of the game. Not sure why you're coming back out. I'm not sure if it's, hey, we're trying to make Mike Evans feel like he is part of our offense with AB coming in. I really have no idea why the conversation was, but I heard Key talking about, and it's so true. When you talk about a guy being open, that has nothing to do with where he is in the progression or the read of the play, right? I mean, and I know Key knows more than I do, but it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if he's 2 or 3 in any of these, on Sunday night, you can't get to 2 or 3. You barely get to 1 because of how much freaking pressure they had. So when I'm looking at this, I don't like it, man. I like BA. I like his attitude the majority of the time. But at the end of the day, I thought this was just, this was unnecessary, and Jay Will made a good point. Like, there's some things that They can go unsaid. It's okay, right? Every thought that comes to our mind doesn't have to be projected and discussed in front of everybody, right? Let's have some of those meetings privately, get together. If I was trash, tell me I'm trash in the meeting, right? And then let's move on. Hey, we all were bad, and let's move forward. If it was a fourth quarter, one last play, I didn't make the play, okay, I can see that. But when you talk about getting beat from the first snap to the final whistle, bro, why are we singling out any player? You know what I mean? Like, let's take all 53 and the coaching staff and everybody else and say, we got whipped. That's all we need to say.
Man, I wish I could have played with you, Jeff. I really do, because you get it. You certainly get it. Let me ask you this, though. In this situation, you played with, obviously, Peyton Manning, great Hall of Fame quarterback. How will Tom Brady respond to this? Will he just take the quarterback approach, like, I'm just moving on?
I think he has to. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a guy, Peyton's the same way, right? Like, even if he's pissed about it, he's not a guy who's going to go back and try to flash in the media, right? That's just not his personality. Whether it was in New England or going to be in Tampa, he's trying to win games and unify this locker room. And he sees, listen, from a guy who has been around as much winning as he has been around, he understands the last thing they need is any division. This is not a team that has been well oiled, even the last couple weeks, right? I mean, you think about even the Giants game and, barely coming back to win that game. This is not a team that's hitting on all cylinders. He knows the work that's going to be required. So, Key, I'm with you, man. Like, why say anything? Just be like, hey, man, everybody watched that game. Everybody knows this can't be put on one player. I'm just going to move on and try to rally my guys. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to help, right? Like, and he knows that. And I think from the organizational perspective of what's being asked of him to keep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in, kind of on the straight and narrow, there's no reason to respond. Just go try to play better next week.
Jeff, a team that's on the straight and narrow, when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, what do you think when people refer to Patrick Mahomes as the GOAT already in his career?
Nah, too early. Great player, absolutely. League MVP, Super Bowl MVP, all of those things. But the whole GOAT conversation, year 3, that's premature in my opinion. And again, I love put. But if it ended today, for what, God forbid, right? Anything like that happened. But if it ended today, is he the best quarterback that's ever played in the NFL? Absolutely not, right? Is he a great football player?